Hey there everybody, and welcome back to another codeless application development tutorial. For those of you looking to create some kind of a PDF making application, giving users the ability to enter in different information in one area and then click a button and it will create a PDF, you could use this to make invoices, resumes, certificates, really anything that you could potentially need as a PDF. Stay tuned, I'm covering the basics of this in today's video. Now before we get started, don't forget to like the video and subscribe and so that you're supporting the channel. Now, jumping straight in, if you have questions, a couple of resources. So if you go over to codelessfix.com, there is actually a section under the Forums Classes tab. You can post in the forums if you would like to post some questions, whether you want to communicate with me or others that are actually having similar issues. You also have the Appgyver forums as well if you're interested. Now, jumping straight in, we're going to be using two things in today's video. Now, if you want to see a use case for this, I have a resume builder application on codelessfix.com. You can click here to view the actual app, or you can view it in the web page as well. Now, we will close those and walk through the basics. So first thing you will need is a free account over at Craft My PDF. I'll go over pricing in a bit, but you will be able to use this for free, from what I see, indefinitely, but there are some limitations. Then you're going to need your free Appgyver, basically just your Appgyver accounts. This is the community edition. So once you have those two things, you'll be able to get kind of into a page like this. Now, if this is a little bit confusing, I have other Appgyver tutorials on my channel and on codelessfix.com, so feel free to brush up and then come back to this video. This is a very simple application, but again, you're probably going to need to customize it a bit. Now, I do want to give a quick shout out in this video here by Curiosity Lab. He walks through some pretty cool features and functionality, some similarities to what we're doing here, except in this video he uses, I believe it's JavaScript and some more custom coding. In this video, we'll be using APIs. And then I will link these two help articles and that YouTube video in the description if you want to check those out. They've been helpful for me in this build process. So the first thing that you're going to do is go over to craftmypdf.com. And then what we will do is we'll look at the subscription real quick just to show you pricing. If this doesn't work for you, then there's no point in you kind of continuing with the video. So for the free model, you get 50 PDFs or images and 3 templates and REST API, which is really all that we need. Now you can bump up the number of exports based on your needs and pricing. So I don't think that this is terrible pricing, but it really depends on what you need. For me, 50 PDFs a month is honestly plenty. So let's go ahead and jump into our dashboard. So I created a brand new account, again, a free account, did not require a credit card. And this is basically what the landing page looks like. There's not much to it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to build out our application in Appgyver. So you can drag over whatever components you need, but typically you're going to need input fields or something that allows a user to input some kind of data. So in this case, I have dragged over a container with multiple rows inside. So basically I just dragged over a container, put in a couple of rows just like this, and then in each of those rows I put an input field, just like I'm doing here, and I repeated that process until I have this here. So one container with 8 total basically cells. So it's 4 rows, each with 2 cells by default, and each with a simple input field. Now again, you can design this however you need to. Now the next thing you're going to need to do is add some app variables or page variables. I prefer app variables just because if you have other pages in the app, you will need to use an app variable so it's stored and moved across pages. So you're going to need a variable for each of the items that needs to be sent over to Craft My PDF. In this case, I just called it skill 1 through 8. Now I have this object up here. This is not going to be covered in this video, so you do not need to add this. But for those of you that are interested in getting more than just the file back, this, if I'm not mistaken, you'll need to double check, but I think that this is the schema that's going to be provided essentially in the response body when you send your API call. So you can actually add a variable, and what you can do when you add this variable is change the type. And you can set it to object or list of values. So I set mine, and it's basically just called the download schema, and then you have these 5 variables contained within it. Again, it's not needed, but if you want to map it and do something a little bit more advanced, you can. And you can double check their documentation just to make sure that the schema is correct for the response body. So let's jump back into the video. So we have all of our app variables, and now we're going to go to our input fields, and all you need to do is type in your label and then bind it using either the formula, which is just going to be just app vars dot and then the name of your variable, or you can go to app variable and then just click on the actual variable you want to apply to it. So you can go ahead and pause the video. I've already done that for all of these. I'll click through just to show you. All I've done is update the name and then assign the value using a formula. If you want to know the formula, you saw what I just did. I clicked here, chose the data variable, app variable skill 1. But if you want to see what the formula is, once you've done that, you can select here and click formula, and then you'll have the formula for that app variable. I prefer this because you can copy and paste this and then just type in 2, 3, 4 to change your app variable. But to keep things simple and quick, that's really all that we need to do. Now, we are going to set up the logic for our create button in just a minute. First, we need to essentially set this up over on Craft My PDF. So the way that this works is you can go to Manage Templates, and then it'll take once the page loads, you have a couple of options, an image template or a PDF template. You can do it from a file, but for this, I'm just going to create a new template. And then you can really just choose whichever of these templates work best for you. So if we were to choose a blank template here, you can see that there's really nothing being sent, but you can choose from any of these. So if you wanted to have a certificate, for example, then you could fill this out and have all of these fields be something that is being sent over. You can do rental agreements, boarding passes, event tickets, so some pretty cool stuff. What we will do here is we will just go ahead and put, let's just choose certificate 1 just to kind of show you how dynamic and quick this can be. So you'll really just click create, and you'll get a template ID, a name, a group, and all of this other information. So once you've done that, the next thing you need to do is click edit to go to the editor, and make sure whenever you make changes that you're clicking save right here. That is a critical part to make sure you don't lose any of your data. So in this case, this is our editor. It's pretty simple. You have your giant PDF page, kind of like a Word document, and then each of these items and elements are the fields where the data is going to be entered. So at this point, you can move things around, put whatever you want wherever you need it to be. So if you wanted this over here, this up here, you can resize. This part I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. I'll just use the default just so you kind of have an idea. Now, the next thing that you need to do is basically just understand the correlation between this page and, don't get scared when you see this, but this page here. This doesn't look that bad, but the idea here is where you see name, over here in the designer, we have name. So the way that this works is you have in double curl brackets data dot and then whatever the variable is, and then double curl brackets. And that's the same for everywhere on this page. So the way that this works is if you have this text here, you can double click it, and then you can edit all of the text properties on this side. So if you want to change the size, distance from the top, you can choose rotation. For example, if I were to click here, you can see that this is now rotated. So the idea here is the text is going to come in exactly as it's set up here. So we can make the font size a little bigger. You can really set it however you need to. And then you have all these different formattings and options. So that's really all that there is to it as far as editing text. Now, again, you would have to change this to meet whatever your needs are. I'm just going to use the default. So in this case, we have data.name, data.text1, data.course, etc., etc., etc. Now, what we need is basically we need to match this up with our app variables so that we don't have any trouble when we're actually sending data, whether it be actually sending the data or understanding it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through here and put skill 1. and then skill 2, and skill 3, and basically just repeat this process. And down here, you'll notice this looks different because it's using different text formatting. All right. And so we're wrapping up, and this is actually working out really well because it looks like we're going to have the exact number of fields that we needed. And if this is a little bit confusing, the best way to explain it is just make sure that things are as consistent as possible so you don't get confused. So in our PDF maker, we have all of these input fields. Each input field is tied to an app variable. That's the data that's being sent. So if this is the first name, then we would be sending it over. So the idea is this field here, skill 1, has the app variable skill 1, which will ultimately go right here in skill 1. So you'll see we have skill 1 through 8 added on this page. And again, you would move these around wherever you want them to be. And then once you've done that, don't forget to click Save. And then you're going to go over to the Data tab. Now, this is where all of the data is mapped. So you'll see we have these options here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, the name, because we renamed it, this was originally up here, but we've now renamed it to skill 1. So we'll need to go here and put skill 1. And then to the next one, we'll type in skill 2. And you don't really need to worry about the values on the right. I'll show you a cool feature that they've added in just a minute to kind of validate your data. But those aren't really important. All right, so skill 5. Now, one thing to note, if you don't have this, all you need in the first line is an open bracket. And then in the second line, all you need is, it's either 2 spaces or 2 indents. And then it needs to look just like this. So it's in double quotes, whatever the name of your variable is, a semicolon, a space, and then in double quotes, the value, and then a comma to separate each of these items. The last one does not get a comma, and then a bracket. I'll post a sample of what I'm using in the description. Now, to add more, you just add in a comma, hit enter, paste in the next ones you want to add, and that's all there is to it. And the cool thing about the editor, if you make a mistake, for example, adding a comma at the end, it'll give you a little error saying that it can't, that there's some kind of a problem, so you can just fix it. So we have skill 1 through 8, and they're all mapped. Now, here's a trick that I learned to help make this work out a little bit more efficiently, because we're ultimately going to need to copy this to Appgyver. So you'll see you have your value, which is a formula here. So if you click formula, you can actually copy this text by hitting Control-A, Control-C, or the equivalent on a Mac, and then we can paste it in here. Now, I do this because it makes it a little bit quicker when we get to Appgyver, and I'm just going to swap it out for skill 2, and I'll give you a quick overview once I've finished this. But the idea here is we're just trying to make the copy and paste process as simple as possible. So if you have a large PDF, this does take a little while, but the good thing is it's a one-time process. Once you have it set up, you shouldn't need to do it again. So we'll paste in this, and then we're kind of wrapping up here. Once we have all of this information, it doesn't take that long from that point on. So we are doing skill 7. All right. So we're going to go over to Designer and click Save just to make sure we don't lose anything. And now we have our data set up. So the way that it works, again, in open and close brackets, you just need to type out the formatting that looks like this. You should have something here by default, so you're just modifying it to work with whatever data you have. So what we're going to do is you can actually click Validate and Format JSON, and you'll see it'll say formatted, and it just indented these the way that they needed to be. And then you would want to save your changes. If you go to Preview, this is what I love. This is that feature I was mentioning a minute ago. You'll see that what it's doing is it's actually filling in your information. So you'll see I typed out appvars.skill1, skill2, skill3, skill4. It's kind of populating it for you. Now, we do see an issue down here with this one, so we need to go back to our designer and figure out, it looks like I just misspelled something. And when we click save, we'll go over to preview, and now we'll see that this is now working. All of the fields are populating, so we're ready to go ahead and get started sending data. So let's go over to Appgyver. So we have our create button right here. On component tap, I have a couple of pieces of logic which aren't technically necessary, but I think it makes it look a bit cleaner. So what we're going to do here is we are going to set up a single button, and then this button is going to do a couple of different things. So it's going to hide a couple of components, which we'll work through in a moment. It's going to perform an HTTP request, set a couple of app variables, and that's all there is to it. All right, so what we're going to go ahead and do is delete some of these. So what we need is basically just these app variables and the data request. I'll explain the logic that I have in the show and hide buttons once we're a little bit closer to the end of the video. But at this point, we will just move these a little bit closer just so it's easier to see everything in one frame. And you can always highlight and move in bulk if you need to. So at this point, what we need to do is we have our button added down here. When we select it, you can pull up this flow editor here, or logic editor. And you need to go to the marketplace and install, if you type in HTTP, you'll find this HTTP request here. You can click install in the top right corner, and then it'll show up in the installed components here. You can drag this over and you'll connect it to component tap, and then you can set app variables right here. So we are going to set app variable output success and output failure. So we do not have these already. So we will put output success and then output failure. And then we will go back to our button, and we're going to do our HTTP request logic first. So when you go over here to craft my PDF, we will, let's see, so first thing we will do is we'll go to the designer and we'll click save. And then at this point, we will just go back to the home page. So a couple of things. The first important thing is this resources button here. And that's because you're going to need to get the URL for your region, which sounds more complicated than it is. And then we will go back into the editor in just a moment. So when you go over here to the resources page, you'll see a bunch of resources, and you'll go to REST API reference. I'll put a link to this in the description. And when you scroll down, you'll see regional endpoints. So I'm based out of the US, so you'll see, I'll show you the endpoint that I'm using, which is right here. And this is going to coordinate with the references here. So you have the alternatives. I was just using the endpoint here. So again, you'll find the one for the region that you're in or are closest to. And then it's basically going to use /v1/create. So to show you what mine looks like, I will copy the URL that I'm using and show you how easy it is to build. I'll just paste it up here. And when we scroll up the page, you'll see all I did was take the option that is right here. So it's typed out api-us.craftmypdf.com, and then it's /v1/create. So this part is going to be the same for you regardless, but this first part is what's going to change depending on the region. So you'll just type this out or copy and paste and follow these instructions if you need to do anything different from what I'm doing. So what I've done here is I've pasted this URL right here in the HTTP URL section. Change your HTTP method to post. In the headers section, you can click this button here and click list of values. The top value is going to be your API key. To get this, go to your Craft My PDF homepage, go to API integration, And this is not something that you want to share with people because this is where people can actually potentially access data. So this is important to keep this safe. And you can, if I'm not mistaken, refresh and save to get a new one. So if you click copy to clipboard here, then you can go over here and paste in your key right here. Now, if you don't have a value already, if you click add a value, it has a value up top and then a header. So there's nothing that needs to be configured, but you'll type in the key as it is up top, no quotes or anything else, just the plain key. And then in the header section, you're going to type this out. It's capital X dash API dash key. So type that out exactly as it is. And then we will click save. And then we have our response body. So I'm going to show you exactly how this is built. So when I click here, this is just a formula. So if you click here and click formula, you'll see what it is and we can type it out. This will look complicated, but all of it's actually copied and pasted. So when we go to craft my PDF and we go to the documents page, when we scroll down, you'll see in the post section a sample payload. I'm going to walk you through exactly what this is, and I'm going to actually paste the one that I'm using in the description so that you can use it if you need to. But the idea here is we have one giant request. In the request are two smaller requests. The first one is all of the data that we're sending. So this is all of the Appgyver stuff. So skill 1, skill 2, etc. The second half of the request is the craft my PDF specific information. So this is what they need. Your template, so how you identify what PDF, the version, the export type, the expiration, so for example, how long they retain the file, what the output is called, etc. So in this case, what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to close this page, which we no longer need, and we have our API key, so we can go back to manage templates. And at this point, this is what we're going to type out. So you can copy and paste what's in the description, or you can actually copy directly from here. And you would paste it in here. So you'll see we have data, and then within data is skill 1, which is our first skill. So in quotes is skill 1, we have skill 2, etc. To get this information, you can actually open up your template editor and go to the data section, and it's all right here. So you can copy this and paste it in right after data, bearing in mind that this is actually in the bracket already. So you'll find your first bracket after data, and you would paste it in right here. So if I were to paste mine in, you'll see it shows up just like this. So one change you need to make if you do this process is you'll see we have skill 1, and it's tied to app variable skill 1, but it's tied to the text value. If you delete the quotes before and after app variable skill 1, you'll see the text color changes, and that's because instead of it being the text value, we're assigning this to the actual app variable itself. So I'll close this and show what my original looks like. So once you've followed that process for all of your app variables, and if you're having an issue, I've noticed the app variable editor sometimes, or the formula editor can get a little weird if you have really long bodies. You can do this in Notepad, Notepad++, or Microsoft Word as well, and then paste it in when you're done. So you'll follow that process all the way until you get here. This is this second half from the Craft My PDF documentation that you need. You can see exactly what all of these different things mean reading through the documentation here. But the only really important one for us right now, at least, is the template ID. So we'll just copy this here, head on over to Appgyver, and paste it into the text field next to template ID. Then if you want, you can specify a version. I'll just call it version 1. Not quite sure what this refers to. I haven't really had to use it. And then your expiration date. If I'm not mistaken, this is in minutes, so it's just how long this is available. Your output name. I'm assuming you would want to keep the .pdf part, but I'm not changing anything else. So we can actually click Save here. And then we have everything that we need done. So we can save our Appgyver application. We can go to set app variable. So this is actually available over here. So you'll set app variable, and connect the first one to the top and the bottom two to the bottom one. The first app variable, we will click here and click app variable and select output success. And then you'll repeat the process down here for output failure. Then we're going to go to the top one, and you'll see a formula here. It's not terribly complex, but I'll paste this in the description. But I do want to walk you through what it's actually doing. So it is looking into this, which is decoding the output, which is this. So let's break that down a bit. If we were to cut this entire thing out and just type in output, you can see the output of another node. This is the equivalent of going to output of another node, HTTP request, response body. So basically this app variable is being set to the output of this. But we don't actually know what that value is. It comes out in this JSON format. So what we're doing is if we go to formula, you'll see we have the output formula. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, that we know this is JSON, so decode it, and then look for a specific value for us. So what that actually ends up looking like, if you need to find out what lookup does, you can actually start typing it, and when you click here, you can learn more on the right-hand side. But in this case, we'll just use the formula I have. So what we're doing is we have our output, we are decoding it, and then we are looking for where the text is file. Now, if you go to Craft My PDF's documentation, you'll see the response body down here. The file is just the link to the download. So that's exactly what we need. So in Appgyver, once you've typed this out, again, it's in the description, you'll click save, and then the output failure, you can just go to output of another node, HTTP request, message, save. So basically we have those saved. Now we actually have to get the information and allow the user to download it. So what we've effectively done up until now is we've said, all right, send to this URL this data, and our authorization is our API key, so Craft My PDF knows what to do, and then it knows the template, and then we're recording the response, but we're really just recording that URL, and then we'll be able to use it for our application. All right, so we're going to go ahead and build out some more complex logic. So what we're going to do, I'll delete this button that I've previously added. So what we're going to do now is we are going to go into add a new button, and the reason for this is going to be our download button. Then we are going to go over here to Advanced Properties, Visible, and we'll set it to false, and you'll see the button disappears. Now when we go to our Create button, you'll see at the very end of this process, it has set app variable. Now the reason we have a download button that appears in a minute or two is basically what we want to do is we want to show the download only when it's ready, because it takes probably 30 seconds or so. So what we will do is we will also put in text that says, please wait. And you can set this up however you want. In my case, I just put on the actual app builder or the resume builder that I have, I just put a spinner. So if you want, we can actually add that instead. So we'll hide this. If you go to your components, you can put in a spinner, and then we will set this to layout, position, and center, and then go to properties, advanced properties, visible, false. So our create button, when this is actually being done, what we're going to do before this, while we're essentially waiting, because this is where the wait occurs, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our marketplace. You can type in hide and download the hide component, and then type in show and download the show component. And then what we'll do is we will drag in hide, and what we want to do is hide this button. The reason for this is you do not want to have the users spam the button. Otherwise, the number of API calls increases, and it puts you closer to your plan limits in Craft My PDF. You could also use, once this button is clicked, you could store this as an app variable and then set the app variable to 0. That way users can't click it and send the data to the same URL. It's up to you how you want to actually set it up. The hide button is not the best option, just in case it doesn't work, or users find access to the code and then can find the button's function. But either way, we're just doing it simple. So we're going to hide this component, and then we're going to show, and we are going to show the spinner. And this is while it's loading. And the idea is then it's going to set app variable, and this is when the download link is available. So now we are going to hide the spinner so that it's not still going. And then we will finish off by showing the download button, which is button 2. And then I'll walk through this logic really quickly. So what happens here is we do our data request, and then we hide the create button so the users can't use it. We will show the hidden spinner. Then we will set the download link, and because it's set and available, we will hide the spinner so that users don't think it's still loading. And then we'll show the component button 2, which is right here, which is download. And again, advanced properties invisible hides it on page load. And this is what the show and hide component function is changing. So now we're going to go to button 2, which has no logic. And we are going to use a couple of different things. First off, we are going to use download files and export to downloads. Now in this case, if you're interested, you do have the ability to, you can click on Marketplace and download these just by typing in the name, as we have been doing during this video. Now we will connect these like this. And at this point, I want to show you how I learned a little bit more about this. So I'll paste a link to this Appgyver forum in the description. But you can see the idea is we go to download and then export to downloads. So we will go to download files and export to downloads. So in the download files option, we'll click custom list, and you'll see the setup in this forum here. So we have name, created at, modified at, download URL. So we will add those here. When you click the plus, they immediately populate, which is really nice. And based on this article, we'll see that all we need is name and then the download URL. So in this case, the download URL is going to be data variable, app variable, and this is the output success that we saved earlier. And then the name, we'll just set it to static text, and we'll just call it download. And then we'll click save. Now, the next part is you'll see we now have the export to downloads, and you can read through and see what is actually needed here. In files, you'll see if you need to add values for your custom list, you can, but I actually don't believe I had to set this for mine. So we'll just click save. So at this point, we're good to start testing and kind of see if this is actually working. Now, one thing I did as kind of a fail-safe in case this doesn't work is you can actually add in some text. So we will put in some text. We'll just say right here. And we'll say download not working. Click here. And then what you can do is this can actually essentially be on click. It'll be the open URL function. And the URL will be your app variable. So I'll show you how to type it out. It's app variable output success. So what happens is we'll put this beneath the buttons and everything else. So if the download is not working, we'll show this button. And then if you remember, we are going to want to set this to not visible. So we'll select the visibility to false. And this is text 18. So we will need to remember to make this visible. So we will go over here and we will show component. And this is just giving users 2 ways to download. And then we'll show component, text 18, and save. All right, so that was moving pretty quickly. We'll wait for our page to refresh, and then we'll test it out and see what happens. Now, if you're doing some testing and you're having issues with this, one thing to note is you can always right-click on the page and click Inspect. And then you can see when you do this, if it's in the tab or not, you can check your console and network to see where the data requests are going. And then that way you can help identify errors. But in this case, we're just going to type in some random letters and click Create, and then see what happens. So in this case, let's see, it doesn't look like anything's happened. Let's just make sure that it's actually registering the button press. So we're going to go to Create here. And as you can see, we probably should have put this over here instead. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to move the hide button because, as you can tell, I was already getting a little bit confused and pressing the button repeatedly. Nothing wrong with that, but that means it's waiting on the data request. So what we're going to do once more is we're going to save the changes here so that the page will refresh, because we want this button to go away while that data request is processing. So we'll type in some random letters. And then we'll click Create. And you'll see the button disappears. And obviously we're probably going to want to move the logic for the rest of them, so put the data request in the wrong spot. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to attach this here. And then we will want to, let's see, while the data request is running, then we will move forward with the other half. So now we've corrected that. Just to have it make a little bit more sense, we'll try to type in a couple more letters. As you can see, the flow of showing and hiding components is important. So let's click Create, and you'll see we get this little spinner. And basically at this point, we're just waiting to see if the rest of the application's actually working. So based on where we are right now, we are at the show spinner, and it's doing this data request. And then ideally, it's going to set this when it gets a response and then hide all of the components. So at this point, we'll just wait and see if anything's actually happening. So in this case, what we will do here is we will go to the console, and you'll see it's failing to load, so we will see what the error is. If we go to our console, we can also go to our network tab and scroll down. So we'll refresh the page from scratch, and we will click in here and see what the error is. So we'll click Create, and you basically are going to scroll down, and you'll see right here we have an error. So this is the error we want to look at. So we want to make sure of a couple things. First and foremost, that our URL is correct, which it looks like it is. And then we will scroll down, and you'll see response headers. And then we'll continue to scroll. And basically, you want to make sure that your API key is correct and that all the data is correct. So let's look through this really quickly and see if we can figure out what the issue is. All right, so I did some quick checking, and it looks like it was really just the formatting of the body that I was requesting. So that works as expected. So we are going to just refresh the page, and again, the actual request body will be in the description. But we will go ahead and show what works and what doesn't, and walk through the final steps to get this up and running. So when we click Create, when you scroll down, you'll see our spinner is going, which helps the user know, hey, something's happening. Now our download button won't work just yet, and we'll click it and you can see nothing happens. But when we click here, you'll see that we do load the certificate, which is cool to see some progress. Now, the reason the download button doesn't work is we have set the list and the export to downloads, but we haven't told it what to export. So if we click here and we click output of another node, download files, function files, and save, this should fix that problem. So basically, we're saying export to downloads, but we're not saying what. So in this case, we will now refresh our page. So we're going to go through and try to type it out. So we'll type in Tyler Talks, because I believe this was the name field. I can't remember what the rest of these were, so we'll just put stuff, things, stuff 2, and we'll just type in some random letters here and see if we can generate our certificate. So we're clicking create. And while this is loading, one thing I want to note, if you refresh your Craft My PDF page, once you scroll down just a bit, you should be able to, on the dashboard, see how many API calls you're using. I don't know if this is real time, but you can at least see the transactions down here. But you'll see that we now have our download link, so we'll click it, and we have a file. And when we click the file, right here, we have what looks like signatures. We have all of the information. You can see that everything can be highlighted, and then users can click here to download as well. Now, if they're unable to download using this link, they can click here, which will open the web page, and then they can just use this button to download the file as well. So that way it should work on mobile devices, whether it's a mobile app or as a web app. Again, you'll be able to move this around using the template editor here. So I hope that was helpful. Again, you can change this up and add as many or few fields as you need. I'm sure there's some limitation, but feel free to take a look. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comment box below. Don't forget, you can also go over to codelessfix.com and use the forums. I hope that was helpful. I will see you all in the next video.